Yeah, so while Jeffrey is helping me out with the presentation, typically I like to say, like, if you put a salesperson and a developer in the same room, they're going to kill each other. And I'm the guy in the middle who makes sure that doesn't happen. So I try to, you know, I speak dev and I speak business and can make sense between those two. But yeah, lately I've been into chatbots, and that's what I'm going to talk about right now. Yay. So yeah, by the way, Apibot.ai was free. We figured, like, hey, that's a great name for a new product, so let's do this. But you might ask, like, why chatbot? Well, the fact is, and this is a very simple graph, there is more happening on any messaging platform than there is on social media platforms. So there is more people using Messenger than using Facebook. And that shows something. It's namely that a lot of people use chat, use conversations in their daily lives. It's a very natural way of interacting with each other and with other services, for instance. And as you can see, probably is going to, like, the gap is going to be bigger over the years to come. So it's a trend, and it's definitely something every company should take into account and do something about. And that's also where Jaco comes into the picture, because when Jaco started working for APInf, we had a lot of ideas bouncing off to each other, and we had some really good times. And one of the things Jaco was like, yeah, chatbot, that would be really, really cool if we could do something about it. I don't know what, prototype, whatever. Let's just do something. And at that point, I was looking into chatbots for another project, and I was like, that shouldn't be too difficult, you know? So what we did basically is something like this. Right. The time when we started, it was still white outside, so it's kind of fit. So we just went head on with it. I told our CEO, like, give me a week or two and I'll get something ready. And here's the result. So basically, this is something today. I actually made the screenshot today. We have a chatbot on Slack. You can say hello, and it's going to say good morning to you. It's a very polite chatbot. But it can do a lot more. And you have to see this in the context of a Swagger file of a developer asking for well, information about a certain API, so documentation. So first of all, that's also a bit like, you need to give the capabilities of what can this chatbot do. So you can say, like, okay, what can you do? Can you help me? And it will say what the scope is of this chatbot. So basically, you can show all the APIs it has, you can add more, and then you can ask some documentation, some information about a certain API. All right, well, simple. Sometimes it doesn't work, and then you need to repeat yourself and hope it works. It goes quite okay, then it will answer you, like, for instance, at this moment we have the obvious pet store. Who knows pet store here, by the way? Pet store is the Swagger example that you will find everywhere. Uber is the other Swagger example, slightly less popular, but still good example. So yeah, well, here's two APIs. Let's use pet store. So okay, it asks what you want to know about pet store. And then you can say, well, I'm interested, what objects do you have? So we have user, pet, order, and so on and so on. And we're working still continuously on this. I tried, hey, would be cool here to add some buttons so you can just click instead of type. And then that works. And it will give you, for instance, for pet, the documentation that is defined in the Swagger file. It works, right? So there is a lot more information you can ask. So generic description, contact details, the license. You can ask about the paths and operations as well, and so on and so on. And I'll get a bit more into detail about technology, but first of all, what if you want to make your own chatbot? And that's where I was at the start of those 2 weeks. So first of all, you need to choose a platform. You know, chatbot, there is NLP, natural language processing. There is a chatbot environment. There is a whole, well, UI thing around it where you also need to train and so on and so on. And there is a lot out there. this is by far not a complete list. Personally, what I liked a lot was with AI and API AI, they were pretty complete in the sense that they combined both NLP and the whole chatbot environment into a package that actually works. The others, I tried quite a few, just didn't stick for me. Eventually, I went with API.ai for a couple of reasons. I got it working. You know, that's also part of the developer experience. When you try something out and you actually get something that works within the next, well, Jaco would say 3 minutes, it's like you feel like a god. You're like, ha ha ha, I can do this. But also it's an environment that is backed by big money. So they got a couple of millions investment. There was good documentation. So same thing again, developer experience. And a quite active community as well. So there was a forum, there was activity, and there were the developers of API.ai actually responding to people's requests. So very quickly, the core of API.ai is intents. So basically it is when a user says, help, what are you going to do? And then you can also give some other examples. It doesn't say help, but can you help me? What can you do? And so on and so on. So by just giving some examples for every intent, it will also learn by itself, so that if you phrase it a little bit differently, it's still going to understand it. Also very important is context. So basically, for instance, here, when you say use pet store, it's going to remember that context of, okay, we're talking about pet store here. So you don't need to repeat that every time, like, hey, use pet store, give me the objects. You know, it's just like, I'm using pet store here, now show me this, show me that, and so on. And it will remember that. Very useful as well. Then very important as well as the training part. And this is where we still need to improve a lot, because this is a very fresh project. So basically, we need to understand what people ask. Now, I kind of like this aspect to it. So whenever you ask something in our Slack channel to the API bot, I'm going to see that. I'm going to see what you're asking. Kind of interestingly, so far, a lot of people try and break a bot. Very interesting as well. Very often at this stage, it still works because it's not trained yet. But then we learn, right? So you get better at it and you can fix a lot of things. A designer's dream, because it can track everything and it can improve longer. So in this case, basically, it's like, okay, I got this request. I thought it was this intent and this was the answer. Is that good? And you say, yeah, good job. If it wasn't good, you can then change it and kind of, you know, point it to the right direction. Or if the user asks something and you're like, hey, didn't think of that, you can then start creating new intents and improve the chatbot over time. By the way, also no deployments needed or something. Again, developer's dream there is like, you just, you know, click, change a few things and your bot works. It's really nice. Right. Now, obviously, that's just a chatbot, so it's Slack and you can talk and it will answer you a few things, but obviously there's a backend needed as well. I'm almost old school, I would say. I really like Django, so Python framework. Basically, that's what I've been using for a while now. There's a cookie cutter, which allows you to just, you know, start with a project. It works. You can deploy it in Heroku. You can go very fast. Good thing as well is we're using a Swagger parser library from Python. All open source components, use that one, and I was good to go. By the way, also this part is open source, so if you want to check it out, feel free. I have to admit, like API design-wise, it's horrible, for the simple reason that API.ai only allows one API endpoint, and it needs to be a post. So my Swagger file would look very silly, because it's like, here's the only endpoint you can use. We're doing all the business logic in the backend. But yeah, it works. That's the way it goes at the moment, and they're still improving it as well. But yeah, so basically it's a big if then else structure. It's nested, but we're working on it every day as well. But one thing that I really thought was very interesting, and I'm going to give you a second to read this. And well, if there's anyone online Yeah, you can read this too. So basically the idea with chatbots is that we'll have to learn a lot of new things again as designers. A lot of people, when you say design, associate it nowadays with web design. Right? You make a website, a web app, and then there is some very clear, design guidelines defined. You have a menu and white space and yada yada yada, and all of that is actually irrelevant here because it's just chat, which is a very natural way of communicating, of interacting, but it also needs their own set of rules. So you need to give kind of clear error messages. If you ask something and the bot doesn't understand, you need to direct the person to the right direction. You also need to give clear context, like, hey, where are we at this moment? And so on and so on. It's something that I need to learn a lot as well still, but I'm very intrigued by this because it's also it's a gold rush. Wild West, we still need to learn a lot and define the new rules in the chatbot world. And then finally, well, after those 2 weeks, we had something running, and then we were talking with Jaco, like, hey, why not sell this? That's my business side to it. What I've learned so far as well is like, hey, when you have something, you don't know for sure, is there any value to it? Try and sell it. If it's like not ready yet, it's a good sign. And then at that point, make it ready. Don't make it perfect and then figure out no one wants to buy it. For us, it's also a good way to gather feedback that way. So, well, we're asking you money. Are you happy? Are you you're taking out your wallet already? Well, that means we're not asking enough, right? So it's a good way to get feedback. So we have our website up and running in here. Everyone can try it out. So you can get an invite on our Slack environment and then just start talking with our Apibot, who's called Borisovna, by the way. You can talk about life with her as well. Good thing is, the first bot is for free. So if you ever want to just, we have an API, we want to use this chatbot because it's cool, you don't even have to pay for the first one. So, yay. And that was it for me. So thank you all for listening. I hope this kind of got your, what's the right word, enthusiasm for chatbots up. It's all very possible. It's not magic and impossible and only Mark Zuckerberg can do it. We can do it in 2 weeks, so can you. Thanks to you all.
Don't go anywhere. I have to come here to say it out loud that I disappointed you. The last time I visited here, I told you that you're going to see the live version. I tried to get Philippe to actually.
Did you?
Yeah, I promised, but it's my fault. Philippe didn't want to do it, so let's not do it. But you have a chance to actually see it.
Right.
After this session right now, so it's really there, even though we don't show it at the moment. So.
Good point.
My fault.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't know what he promised. No, I learned, that's another thing I learned, like live demo, there's a risk to it. So I took some screenshots, but if you want to see it live in action, then come and talk to me after the presentation is done. But if anyone has questions, I think we got a few minutes for that.
So the NLP part, so I don't quite understand why you need that. Isn't it like you can just have a classical chatbot with just commands?
Right.
Why do you need the NLP part?
So that's a good question. So there's two things to that. Yeah, so the question for the people on the live stream is that why do we need the NLP part? Because you can just be done with it, kind of a traditional chatbot. That was something I considered as well and thought, I made that assumption. It was a bit naive in the beginning. And let me explain. So first of all, you can just, if the user says this, then do that, right? So type it. And that was the first tool I used. It was Pandora bots, which is literally like, okay, if the user says this, then you're going to do that. Problem there is that if the user makes a typo, or even just uses different capitalization, you need to define all of the variations, all of them. So do they add dot in the end or not, or question mark is like, it's a new entry. So that's a terrible amount of work, which I'm lazy, I don't want to do that. So it's possible, but there's a lot of work involved. On the other hand, you could also just say like, I'm not going to allow the users to type, but a bit like the buttons we saw, so they can choose from certain amount of options. That would make your life easier, but it's in terms of interaction feels less pleasant. So they've done some research for it, and there is use cases for both. Typically, the buttons is more like you want to get something done and you have a clear goal in mind. Like, okay, I want to order pizza. Which one? That one. Done. You know, send. Here's my address. This is a bit more conversational, so it's a bit more inviting to explore as well. Something a lot of people need to learn still and see which situation, what type of chatbot. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Awesome. Anything else?
That's strictly Slack.
No, that's also a good question. So with API.ai, there is about 10, like click the button and you're pretty much done. We have it on Facebook as well already. Twilio was one, Google Assistant, Skype, there's a bunch. But they also have SDKs. So if you want to do the Node, if you want to implement it in Android and so on, it all works. I guess then you have to build your own chat environment, but then
yeah, I meant Apibot. Did you do that strictly for Slack? Apibot itself?
Well, again, we activate it for Facebook as well. You can activate it easily in different environments. Yeah, dependent on the API.ai platform.
So that's all you did use those buttons.
Yeah.
So that's actually not available on all platforms. So.
Right. Well, and that's also a bit like, because at some point we were like, okay, we're going to put it on Slack because that's where the developers typically are. And then, we pushed out the website, and then I realized like, hey, you need an invite in order to, use Slack. So how do we show, get people on board to use, to try it out? But then thank God open source, because a clever guy made an application that automatically sends invites. So now we have that running as well on yet another Heroku. Took me 10 minutes and a problem solved. So, hooray for open source, right?
I have a question to you.
Sure.
Whenever we are trying with chatbots, like we give a lot of inputs, like even like small words or like a whole sentence.
Mm-hmm.
Are you now using it to make your bot learn about what the users might ask for?
Yeah, definitely.
Is the learning going on?
Definitely. There is a tricky part though. If a user says things with a very small amount of words, it's very easy to get mixed up.
Yes.
So if you say like, show me pet, it doesn't know like, is that an object or is it a path or is it, I don't know.
Yeah.
So then it becomes very difficult. If you then specify like, show me the object pet, it knows like, okay, it's an object, and then it's a lot more easier.
So the context matters here.
A bit, yeah. If you just say pet, it's like, well, I don't know. So to that extent, yeah, there is some learning, like some more context that the user typically needs to provide. But yeah, we're learning every day on how that works. I think it's also educating the user through the chat is also one way to circumvent it a bit. Because for instance, now I think it was you even who was using like, show me the objects in pet store. Deal with that. Because the flow goes like, hey, you first say I'm using pet store, and then you ask for the object. So now it's going to answer like, because it will identify all the elements, and it was going to answer like, hey, let's tell me first which API you're using, because then you don't need to type that over and over again. So there is this educational aspect as well that I'm trying to get in there.
Is there any research about the user experience of the chatbots?
Probably. Well, let's put it this way. A lot of design experts see it as a very big trend for the next year. Oh, something's happening. Screensaver? No. Right.
Should give it back up. Yeah.
Yeah, there's something weird here, but well, good enough. Right, so it's definitely a trend that a lot of design experts are looking forward to. And research, I'm assuming there's a lot of research, or at least some research done for it. Haven't read it though, so can't help there.